This is the Nobody Talks Shidduch Resume podcast, episode 26, Dating Out of the Box and all of those quirky characters. I'm here in this episode with Yona and Chani. Welcome.
What's up, what's up?
Lady and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's so kind. So people who totally stick out of the resume stack, okay? They're different, they're loud, some might say they're odd. They usually don't fit the status quo, okay? Probably me. And they just stick out like a sore thumb. Heck, they might even be you or you two. So here are our thoughts on those characters and, how to understand whether it's a good shidduch for you or not, because they are different, right? And maybe you might be a better fit for some other type. But needless to say, they always end up in the stack. And let's get to that. That didn't rhyme. So you're at your best friend's birthday party. They rented a place in Connecticut. You got a whole bunch of people there. His wife's friends, his parents' friends, special occasion. And all of a sudden, you find yourself with this cute couple. Let's call them the Lobsters, the Lobster family. It rhymes. And they just adore you. They're like, you're adorable. We get how adorable you are. You're so awesome. And you're getting to this linguistic, cordial conversation. And you're talking about, you just connect politics, life, hashgacha, which vad you eat at. Everything's just coming along. And you part ways. And they say, by the way, we're going to have a shidduch idea for you. We want to help. We want to set you up. And you're thinking, oh my God, this is it. This is like this. These are my bashert matchmakers. Anyway, the WhatsApp comes in a few days later. You're ready to jump like a little girl in a 90s movie, And it's not ideal. It's not ideal. You're a little prepared for that in the back of your mind. These two are looking at me. And, you've listened to last episode 25, and you've given the classic response, not up my alley, just not my look. But then they poke back. Now what? Now what do you do? If you actually find the shadchan or friend or whoever who actually wants to have that conversation, how do you have it? And that's where we are with this scenario.
You don't mess with those lobsters. They got claws and they
the lobster family. I know. And man, still putting the Band-Aids on it. But that's where we're at. Okay, we're trying to have this conversation now of you're looking at the resume and you call the reference, whatever it is. You're like, this person is quirky. This person is not for me. I can see why. And now they want to go at it. You want to go at it. How do we open the floor?
Well, that really depends. What led you to believe that this person is quirky, and what do you mean by quirky? There's so many different ways you could, different avenues that this could go. If you actually did some research and you looked into the person and you heard things about them, like, very nice girl. She has a really quirky personality. She, dresses kind of different and she's into sort of interesting things. And, and they give you some examples, and you've heard this from a couple of people. Then, you could say, listen, this is not me. That, sounds like she might be a great girl, but she's not for me.
So, Yona, here's something I want your take on. Toning things down. Something I remember when I was younger always used to be brought up. They'd go, IJ, tone it down. Just remember to tone it down.
Oh, I'm no stranger to this.
It got me so, I listened to that for many, many years in the beginning. And I stopped. I think I just naturally kind of chilled more out, not the job, the kids, just life gets on top of you. And you get paying the bills. The bills is big, Netflix also. Anyway, so toning it down. I'm curious, do you have to calm down your funkiness and quirks? Or I remember you mentioned you had a hat and it was like I had a feather or something in it, and I told you about that girl with the funky rainbow skirt. Like, when can these things be unloaded? And do you tone them down? I mean, what's your take?
This is a big thing that I went through in my dating. So as you guys both know, I am definitely a quirky person. I wear, as you mentioned, hats with feathers, different colors, the hats. I wear wooden bow ties.
Crazy Purim outfits.
Crazy Purim outfits.
Okay.
I have a wooden tie. And I've been, by the way, I've gotten those because of pictures of my Purim outfits on Facebook.
Yes.
No joke.
Yes. Oh
no
my
joke.
God. It's such a thing, by the way.
It is.
Such a thing.
It is a thing. And you know what I say?
Girls don't like it.
Yeah, listen, some
The
girls don't
status
like
quo.
it.
Right.
Some girls don't like it. Others, such as this lovely lady here, who is now my wife, they do like it.
Yeah.
And what I say is, so while I was dating,
So Baruch Hashem, it sounds like it worked out for you.
it worked out wonderfully.
I was very excited about
So,
the bow tie piece.
so it worked out, but tell us about that journey. Like, were there times that you caved?
Okay, so the answer is somewhat, but that only once I agreed with the points being made. Now, I think that there is an aspect of toning down which can be useful, and then there's an aspect which is unhealthy. I think toning things down, in terms of, for example, so one thing that I actually listened to was when somebody told me, and this is what I mentioned, that I once got, I've gotten no's from people seeing my pictures and posts on Facebook. So I run an Instagram page called Meshuggah. Check it out. Hashtag Meshuggah with a Z. So
I'm on his friend list, by the way.
So I had been posting a lot of those. They're like funny, yeshivish sort of like dubbed over like TV shows and whatever. So I was posting a lot of those on my Facebook, and then I had posted like a crazy picture of a Purim outfit or something. And like the last like 10 posts on my Facebook page, because I hadn't been posting much else, were just these crazy things. So somebody actually gave me a no because they looked at my Facebook and they're like, whoa. So somebody told me that, and I was like, okay. I hear why I should make my Facebook private, because I don't necessarily want like the only information available about me to be my quirkiness, because my quirkiness is not all of me, it's part of me. And if people are getting the impression that I'm just this super quirky guy who's just like must socially be socially not normal because this is all all that they see of me, that's, that can be a problem. So I did make my Facebook private based on that advice. I'm not going to tone down my everyday, general everyday quirkiness because somebody might find out about it and not like that aspect of me. If they don't like that aspect of me, then they're not for me. And I was very adamant about this. And my mom actually had her friend who's a shadchan give me a little bit of an intervention to try to talk. She's like, she had this conversation with me where she was like, listen, it's fine if you're specifically looking for a quirky girl, but then you have to say that you're looking for a quirky girl. And I explained to her my logic, and I explained to her, everything. And she was like, I can't really argue with you. She's like, you're right. I don't know what to tell your mom. Like, you're right. And pretty much, I think that it's important in the beginning of the actual dating, when you go out with a girl, don't unleash your full quirkiness on them, because again, then they're going to get the impression that is you, that is your whole, everything about you is quirkiness, because that's the first thing, that's the only thing that they're seeing of you. If you, that you can kind of ease in. I'm not saying to hide it, but don't let that be the the thing that shines. Don't come on the date dressed crazy,
just like Frodo Baggins.
Be a little
Honey,
toned down.
is this something you think girls would prefer, or they want you to, they want you to show up?
I think
with the feather in the hat.
Girls is a really bad standard because girls all have different
women.
They have different
humans,
standards.
That's the thing.
Human
You can't say
person.
anything about all guys. You
yeah.
can't say anything about all girls.
I think everyone dislikes being told like, you're not conforming to the standard, regardless of their reaction, whether their reaction is to conform or not conform. Nobody likes being told like you are not what other people want to see. Yeah, thank God I wasn't really told very many times that I needed to tone it down. I think the two biggest things that I got, just because I got them more than once, I was told that I needed to straighten my hair more often, which I was not prepared to do because I think that's stupid. And I was told that I needed to not be as bubbly and as effusive on the first two dates. Obviously, I was not unleashing my full self, and I was not saying everything that I would say to someone who I've known for a while, but I did manage to overwhelm a few people.
I got that also, they're like, IJ was too affable. I'm like, everyone loves the affable guy, but.
And don't you want them to actually know what it's like to be in your presence? Like, why
Very true.
not show them what it's like?
I stuck to my guns. I did not let anybody tell me that in my everyday life I need to, and I wouldn't show up on dates dressed crazy. I was pretty toned down on my dates, and I knew how to slowly ease in the quirkiness. I wouldn't on the first date be like, hey, I wear wooden bow ties. I would feel it out, and once I felt like comfortable enough with the girl, I would casually bring it up in conversations, like, yeah, I dress a little funky sometimes.
But
whatever.
I think some people might find that ingenuine.
I don't think it's ingenuine. I think that I don't think you should hide it. I just don't think that you need to display it immediately because again, the person needs to develop a little bit of what your character is like before you unleash the full weirdness on them, because then they're going to associate you with a weird character before even knowing what your social, what you're like socially. So I think that there's a balance. I don't think you should hide anything. I just think that there is a certain level of easing things in where, you sort of dress, fairly standard. You could wear something a little funky, but don't unleash the full crazy. And then as time goes on, with a couple of dates, you're comfortable with the person, you're laughing with them, you're talking to them. Then you start to show them, that side of you. And I think that that's extremely healthy. And I also think it's unhealthy. It's certainly unhealthy to suppress your everyday expression when you're not on a date, when you're not going out with a girl. I think that it's really unhealthy to say, oh, let me stop doing this thing because people might see me and tell girls that I'm weird, or girls might see me and decide not to go out with me.
Well, that jumps into another point. How can you differentiate between out of the box and an actual serious issue? There are obviously, those bigger markers when something is a serious issue, but I'm talking about the ones that are like more in the gray area, right? For those, I think the best rule of thumb is, is it impacting their daily life in a negative way? Is it interfering with their productivity, maybe their success? And is it something that you can personally like cannot handle? So I think that could be very apropos to what you were saying, with Purim. So that person's quirky, but once they're married with a kid, they're gonna shuffle that to Purim or Yom Tif, but they're actually always acting pretty kooky. That could be an issue.
I think it really depends on what your personal level of comfort is and what's too weird for you. And if you decide to join this person's life, is it going to disturb your well-being and your success and your progress? And that could be physically, emotionally, financially, whatever it is. If it's not something that's clinical or pathological, every person needs to decide what's going to work for them.
Is there anything not clinical or pathological today?
Bow ties.
Bow ties. Hey, I love bow ties.
We wore bow ties on the date.
We did.
Both of us.
Uh-huh.
That was the biggest slap in the face to my mom.
Oh my God.
And it was my bow tie. I didn't even have to borrow it. I own it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's
match made in heaven.
Just it makes sense. And if you know someone who likes wearing pigtails, I like wearing pigtails too, so maybe we can do that sometime. Two people who are quirky, can that work? Is it usually, do you think, because I'm someone who's a lot more quirky and I need that anchor, I need someone who's going to be a lot more not quirky, right? More status quo, conventional route, more anchored. It could bring up an issue. I like to be candid with it and just say I like someone who's going to be less than I am. And I know we had a conversation that I mentioned, like, this one with the koala bear. What are we going to do? Do you think it's I know subjective in general, but what do you think? I mean, you think two quirky people usually end up together, or it's the other way around?
I personally think that it's
possible.
It's certainly possible. It's real. This is one of those situations. People say, "Oh, opposites attract," or like, "Oh, you need to find someone that's similar to you." it really depends on the case. It really, really depends. There are some people who really are, opposites attract, and they marry their polar opposites. There are some people who marry people exactly like them, and then most people probably are somewhere in between, where you marry somebody who's, in some ways complements your personality, in some ways counters your personality. I don't think that there's a rule of thumb. I think it's very foolish to ascribe a specific rule to everybody, to say that you need to be looking for someone who's your opposite, or you need to be looking for somebody who's exactly like you. I think that's a situation where it really comes down to your personal preference. And I think that, for example, for yourself that you need someone who's more anchored. So go with that, because that's what you know about yourself. I personally, I didn't have a rigid standard in that regard. For me, the criteria was she has to be able to accept it. She has to exactly. They appreciate. She has to be able to appreciate it, but she doesn't have to be so quirky herself.
Right. Like to piggyback on what Yona said, that if you can be that better person of maybe not judging too much, letting things kind of flow better, can we really live above the general population, right?
Can we really live above what the general population does with responses? Whose responses are we talking about here?
Meaning there's a way of doing, like, this is the way it's done. Can I say, well, this is not the way I'm going to do it because the way it's done is wrong? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah, for sure.
How?
I think personally, the main obstacle I can foresee in choosing that path where, you're not going to just stick with whatever everyone else does or says you should do, specifically in the Shidduch world, Shadchanim are often the ones to make assumptions about what you're looking for based on what you say yes or no to, especially if there's no explanation forthcoming from you as to why you made those decisions. Let's say their perspective of a particular suggestion is odd or weird, and you say yes to it. That will definitely bring an onslaught of even more weird and quirky.
Major onslaught.
So it's a challenge, and I completely understand people who who just don't have the mental energy to sign up for that. But I think that personally, not limiting yourself to what everyone else expects of you, or even what you once expected of yourself, just leaves so many possibilities open. And if you're the kind of person who can push yourself to live above everyone else's expectations, awesome. Do it. Field the weirdness with a smile.
I think that it's jumping off of what you said, that it's not that the person's just being candid or will acquiesce, but they just might not have that mental energy. Marriage in itself, and that's what the whole purpose of Shidduch dating is. It's tough. It's hard. I've seen it now. Older, not married, but I'm seeing it now older. Other siblings married, more friends married. And I can see you really need to be so in love, or whatever you want to say, chasing each other, that because you're going to have so many things pile up on you. So why make it harder on yourself? And that is a very warranted conversation you should have with yourself before things kind of precipitate for the better, for the worse. And you don't want to get to that. You don't want to get to that stage. So make sure you have that proper acumen to get that answer, whether it's you or if it's the shadchan, or even the relationship in itself. Like, just, you could ask the girl, you could ask the guy. I think once you get more experience, it's a pretty fair game.
Hey guys, this is Yona from the Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast. I want to take a moment to tell you about I Like Ike Marketing. I Like Ike Marketing serves all marketing and communication needs, including web design, branding, graphics, Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns, logos, social media, and more. To get the full deets and explore their services, go to likeike.net or call 516-399-1000.
I always get this one, okay? And when we get the the quirkiness, they send me the most quirkiest looking person or the quirkiest background, and then they go, "Don't worry, she's very, very, very normal. Don't worry." Now I wasn't even thinking that before, and now you bet it's on my mind. I'm being frank with you. Yoda, what do I do here?
Okay, so
Very normal. Very
yeah,
normal.
I'm
I'm trepid. I get content over that. I'm like, okay, wait a second. So she's really not alive. What's going on here?
Yeah, so I mean, normal is a sort of ambiguous term. It's hard to, it doesn't have a meaning that you can really pin down. It's not something that has one specific meaning, and I think that it could sometimes come across as a little bit like, I don't know, wishy-washy, like just one of these phrases that people throw out. I actually do appreciate the description of normal, especially when there are indicators that she might not be normal. So, that there might be something that's a little bit too much for me, So, let's say her background is like ultra yeshivish. So someone will say, I know that she comes from this background, but she's super normal. So in that context, normal means that she's sort of middle of the road hashkafic. She's not this, don't judge what her background is. She herself is really actually pretty middle of the road. And I think that, it depends on the context, but I think normal generally, sometimes someone's describing the personality and you ask them. Sometimes it's, you ask the question, how would you describe her personality? Is she crazy out of the box? Is she quiet? So then the response might be, she's normal. She's fun. She knows how to have a good time. She is very outgoing and very fun, but she's normal. She's not over the top. She's not crazy. So I think that normal, while it doesn't have one specific meaning and it can sound ambiguous, in the correct context, if you're putting it in the context of the scenario, it could be a helpful term. Depending on what was preceding that description, whether you ask them a question or they're describing the background and they're qualifying with it, but she's normal. I think it could help. It could make you feel more at ease with the situation that like she's not abnormal. She's not crazy. She's not over the top.
Well, I like how you phrase that. It's kind of like a throw-in. So that's interesting. That's a great correlation because it kind of sets up the premise. It's not done in an ostentatiously way, like totally designed and to make you fall for the person or can be convinced. It's just in that premise that, this person, I know you're modern Orthodox and you're really like very more machmir, and this girl's yeshivish, but she's normal, and that kind of bridges that gap. So there's no contentiousness or anything. It's you're not going to get complacent like, well, you're throwing that in. So I like that.
I think that's usually really how it goes.
I understand that.
I think like usually when you get the description that someone's normal, that's how it's being
I never knew that, honestly. I don't think that's not. It's not something that I just had on my mind. So that I wouldn't be shocked if too many guys didn't know that.
Right. Like I haven't generally heard a shadchan just throw out that like she's normal with no reason for saying that. Usually it's you might think that she's not normal based on this factor. However, just know she is normal.
Is that like, let's say a shadchan throws that in, Chani, to on the girl's end? Does that bridge something? Like, oh, by the way, he's totally BT, but very normal.
So I usually found the word normal to be pretty reassuring, especially if it was coming from someone who knew me, because people who knew me when I was dating and now, but especially then, knew that like balance emotionally and just in terms of lifestyle was very important to me. Yeah. So when people said things like normal and balanced, they knew it would be meaningful to me.
Fair and balanced.
Very, very reassuring.
Oh, I hear that. Okay, so girls like that line.
This girl likes it.
This girl likes it. Well, I think you represent a fair, amount the population of current shidduch daters out there.
Unless somebody's looking for quirky specifically.
That's true.
And then normal could very well mean boring.
Yes, that's another way. That's another way. You could use that jargon.
So one thing that I wanted to bring up was noticing like patterns in your dating that might influence future decisions that you've made. that you will make. Like if you notice that girls with animals in their profile picture seem to have just some common denominator to them that you are not comfortable with, and that doesn't necessarily logically flow from liking animals. It's just a correlation. How do you balance that with, your experience is valid and should guide your future, but at the same time, correlation does not equal causation. And for anyone who's never heard that before, it just means that two things that happen at the same time doesn't necessarily mean one causes the other. And I had that when I was dating. There was something that I was very particular about. I was very particular about people having a sense of discretion for their own and other people's privacy. And I was noticing that people who were at some point associated with a particular place that shall go unnamed all lack this trait severely. And that doesn't logically follow. Like, why should place X yield people who don't have a certain trait? That doesn't make so much sense, but it was just happening. And then it came up again, and I was going back and forth like, I don't know, am I being stupid? Am I being judgmental? Should I just give it a shot? I gave it a shot, and I shouldn't have, because I would have been right the first time.
Ooh.
So
so judging works here. I love it.
So how do you balance something that's not rational, but it just keeps happening? Or what if a particular shadchan keeps sending you people with the same exact trait or behavior that rubs you the same wrong way?
It's a great question.
Well, I have a counter to that. I know somebody who while she was dating, she was so exhausted with Brooklyn guys, and she was like, yeah, you know what, I'm done with Brooklyn. And I told her, don't say that. She's like, why? I've dated like 10 of them. They're all like, they all have this trait. They all have that, whatever. I'm like, I guarantee you, you're going to marry a Brooklyn guy. And I'm not a prophet. I didn't know that. But I was like, I said it like half jokingly, but my point was just because a lot of guys from Brooklyn might happen to have this personality trait doesn't mean that they all will, and doesn't mean that, that you can't make a judgment based on that. It's very dangerous. Even if the stereotype is somewhat true, even if there happens to be a character trait that it is associated with this place, it's not a necessity that someone from this place is going to have that character trait. So it's very dangerous to really to fully rely on that. Yes, it could guide your decisions, and if you have other choices that seem to make more sense, maybe put that one on the back burner for a little bit. But I think that what ended up happening with this particular girl, she was like, okay, fine, whatever. Time passed. She got engaged. She's like, you're never gonna guess where he's from. I'm like, yes, I am, Brooklyn. She's like, yep.
you
happily married,
you got $100.
Really, really nice guy, very nice.
I think it's a perfect example of a juxtaposition in many ways, because you wanna have hishtadlus and give everyone a chance and all that, but you can't put down your life experience, your integrity, your insight, your aptitude. There are certain people from area X. I like how you phrase it, because I just say Brooklyn, but area X that would yield a certain personality, and this is totally a major. This is such an influential part of shidduch dating, and it's not going to go away. It's always going to be there. You have to realize, based off of your personality, based off of your family dynamic, and based off of maybe who your friends are, those three areas of what kind of person you might be interested in. And it's fair to say, if you're from the five towns, Brooklyn, Chicago, Lakewood, Canarsie, LA. Oh, don't even get me started on LA. There are so many different characteristic traits that you're going to find. So it's very fair for someone to say, oh, that doesn't work for me. But if someone's in the five towns and they're getting say someone from somewhere in Jersey outside of Bergen County, let's say Edison, it's fair to say that might not be for me. But of course, oh, that's too quirky. That's it's just they're off over there. I think that's very mean. That's not the correct thing to say. But of course, you're warranted to make sure you're conveying that over to the person. Don't come off too adamant. You're not so set in those ways, because you might not. I mean, I think like you said, Yona, before, you might not want to pass up. You might get that special somebody.
Right. I'm not saying that these things that these things aren't valid at all. I do think that there is some merit to certain places breeding a certain type, but I think in that case, don't say, oh, she's from this place, never mind, I'm not going out with her, I have too much experience with that. Say, okay, here's my experience with people from this place. I think that that they happen to have this personality trait and whatever. What can you say about this girl in terms of that? Do you why is she different than the general perception that I have of this place? Prove me wrong. Give them the opportunity to prove you wrong.
Yes. I hear that, because I think we got into we were in a conversation about that. So, and I was using that example like with social workers, and I love social workers. They're great girls. They're great guys, because it's even becoming a guy's job in many ways. There's a certain personality type. You're going to be like that. You're not going to, if you're a social worker, you're not going to be like this very antiquated old school personality, because that's just the total opposite of a social worker. You're someone who's going to be very open, wants to talk about feelings and all that. The women loves that stuff. Yona knows what I'm talking about. That
no idea what you're talking about.
That's why I said you know what I'm talking about. Anyway. Are you judging me based off where I'm coming from? Is that what we're getting to?
No, I'm just judging you based off of who you are as a person.
Everything. Yes. I think the overall question, just totally deems the mention of very fair, but let's not, make it a whole quirky comment situation like that. There are people just different areas and all that. And we know the interbreeding, let's say the interbreeding. We've seen it, we know it exists, etc. So let's get to our closing, because we discussed so much. And we're also going to do our lightning round, actually. So just hold off for a second until we get to that. Okay, now for our special lightning round feature, guys. Is it just a quirk or it ain't gonna work? Here we go. We're shooting it off. We got Yona and Chani, and we're going to be counting. They still sleep in their parents' bedroom.
Ain't gonna work.
That's weird.
They have a pet lizard.
I mean, I'd be calling myself ain't gonna work if I said that. So definitely just a quirk.
Okay,
lizards are
clearly he has a pet lizard.
Not currently.
As long as the two of them are separable. It is just a quirk.
Maybe the lizard sleeps in the bed.
Hey, Chani, you took the cat. I know you guys are best friends.
Cats are different.
If they're left-handed. Of course that could work.
That's
Rock
my wife.
Stars.
Left-handed is pretty cool, actually. But I hear it. It's interesting. I had a sister who was left-handed. She is still left-handed. Anyway, wear a bow tie.
Yeah,
Yep.
so as bow tie wearers here, that is just a quirk.
Okay, fine. They occasionally speak with a British accent, mate.
I think for me, that's more than occasionally. So just a quirk. At least once a day.
Yeah, Yona does this really nice thing where whenever he wants to call me out on something, he does in a British accent so that it seems less harsh.
Oh, wait, he does it to me also. Oh my God, I literally have some voice notes about that.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
good.
adorable. So I would have to say if it's cute, they can get by. Now with the British accent, okay, they need I can't do it. They need the food on their plate to not touch. OCT. Adrian Monk.
It's just a quirk, but I'd like to get to the bottom of it. Does it? It could be just a quirk, or it could be it ain't gonna work, depending on where it's coming from.
It's just a quirk, and it's probably indicative that they need OT, but it's still just a quirk.
They snort when they laugh.
A little weird, but I could probably get by. I think just a quirk.
Just a quirk. They probably need a sleep specialist, but just a quirk. Sending everyone referrals today.
That'd be good. Yeah, I know. Seriously, all of our followers who are like in these areas, send us. We'll arrange a special ad price.
Yeah.
Okay, they say Shimona Esrei loud enough so you can hear them. That's a problem with me. Like,
It's-
you're out. You're out of the running.
It's still just a quirk, but I'd probably tell them, like, halachically,
Yeah.
it's kind of an issue.
It's halachically.
No, say it in a British accent, Yona. It makes it so much nicer.
Halachically.
Hey, you're not supposed to be saying Shmona Esrei out loud.
Oh my God!
That's against
that's like
the
New
halacha.
Zealand, dude. I don't even.
Cockney.
They only wear black, purple lipstick.
Yeah, both of those for me are just quirks.
Yeah, quirks, right? Dress up on Purim. I'm gonna answer that for everyone. You know, that's all good.
If they don't dress up on Purim, it's concerning.
Yeah, people might have an issue.
I'm kidding, but
And-
seriously, dress up on Purim. Come on.
She knows how to mix drinks, dude.
Woo.
Absolutely,
Oh.
that's awesome. That is not a
That's
quirk.
not even a quirk. Yeah,
That is awesome. What does the girl say?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Great, she's cool.
Especially if she does it
And
without a recipe.
here's the last one. Archaeology major. I don't know. I don't even know what that is.
It means you dig for stuff.
Oh,
I
right.
think that's
then.
really cool.
Well, that was a fun segment. And now we'll get to our closing. Awesome. So, going into closing statements, you have to make sure when you're dealing with quirkiness that you're able to handle it. It's something that you are either open-minded to or you're not open-minded to. And make sure that things aren't just left too ambiguously. Poke at it. I think it's important to figure out how can you differentiate between out of the box and serious issues. Like, there are obviously those bigger markers of when something is serious issue, but is it impacting that person's life in a negative way? Is it interfering with their productivity, their success? Is it something you just can't personally handle? As we kind of mentioned, a good example would be someone who maybe might be perpetually late. They're just always on vacation. If you're the typical person that's extremely punctual or you're always working, that might not be so much of a compliment towards you. And these are some solid reasons why to think this could work or couldn't work. But overall, I think if you're quirky, be you. You'll find that person. My friend here, Yona, is a living proof of this.
That's what's up.
And we were hoping for this guy for years, and we're like, oh my God, he's got to cut it down. And then bam, he made it happen, and he found someone who appreciates that. And if you can be you, what more surreal part of this world? Like, why else are we living? Just to be yourself. So I love that. Yona, your takeaway from this
I think it's
quirkiness episode.
I think it's funny that how like most shadchanim will say, just be yourself. Just don't worry about it. Be yourself. But then when they find out about your quirkiness, it's like, don't be yourself. Be someone else. Stop doing that. Girls don't like it. I'm here all week. So I think that yeah, my closing statements would be basically to reiterate that it's important to find some sort of a balance, but for the most part, if someone is asking you to change the way that you're living your daily life when what you're doing is simply not the norm, but there's no actual issue with it other than people don't understand it and think it's weird, I think that you should not change the way that you do things in your everyday life. I think that you need to be yourself and you'll be much happier for it and you'll find someone who appreciates you for it. I think that when it comes to actually being on a date with someone, in the very beginning, you don't want to advertise your quirkiness overtly on the first date and the second date. You want to sort of ease into it because at that point you're actually sitting down with this specific person and you don't want to scare them away when you're on a date. You're not going to, what I'm saying is don't change around your whole life so that you don't scare away potential people who might now say no to you. But while you're sitting on the date with the person agreed to go out with you, you don't want to scare them away. You don't want to lie. You don't want to pretend that you're not quirky, but tone it down a little bit in the beginning and feel your way through it. And you know, once you start laughing with this person and being comfortable and feeling like you could talk to them and feeling like you could divulge that information about yourself, then start letting it out and start showing her who you are, or him who you are, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that everyone has the ability to show any of the many versions of themselves, because we all have different versions of ourselves, and choosing one over the other is not called being fake or not true to yourself. Just make sure that one of those is going to come out on a date with a specific person. If you decide to marry a particular person, make sure that being in their presence is bringing out the real you, the you that you want to be, and just be honest with yourself. Make sure you're comfortable. If it's too unfamiliar, weird to you, then that's your choice, and nobody else gets to tell you otherwise.
Awesome.
Amen.
You two are so much fun, and I love that I have podcasts mommy and Tati. Anyway, it's IJ. I'm here with Chani and Yona, and this was another episode, Dating Out of the Box and all those quirky characteristic traits. Like I mentioned and always sign off, happy face, smiley face, silly face. This is the Nobody Talks Shidduchim podcast.
The LMNO Broadcast Network.